Okay, so I just watched Spider-Man No Way Home. Not once, not twice, but I watched this movie 4 different times. And every time, I just love this movie. I really love Spider-Man No Way Home. Now, this video will contain spoilers, so if you haven't seen the movie, back out immediately and go watch the movie while you still can. But if you have seen the movie, here's my thoughts about the movie. So, originally this video was going to come out in December when I had watched the movie, but sadly didn't get the chance to even make the video. And obviously, videos have been light in the beginning of 2022 with, for January and everything. So, Spider-Man No Way Home review is dropping right now. So, anyway, let's get to this review. Okay, so here's why I think Spider-Man No Way Home works. This is the reason, like, Spider-Man No Way Home, in my opinion, does everything that a Spider-Man movie should have. It should have high stakes, it should have consequences, it should have reasonable, like, dialogue and, like, relationships and everything that a Spider-Man movie should have. This movie literally checks the box. And obviously there are some other things in this movie that they even went further on to make sure that this movie worked and was a success for Spider-Man fans and the box office by introducing all the Sam Raimi Spider-Man villains, Doc Ock, Green Goblin, Sandman, as well as Electro and the Lizard. Sadly, they didn't bring any of the Spider-Man MCU villains in or any other villains that we haven't gotten to see yet, but they have brought in, like, characters from past Spider-Man movies, as well as Tobey freaking Maguire and Andrew freaking Garfield back as Peter Parker, as Spider-Man, and it was one of the best things to see. And while I didn't get a huge audience reaction when both of those characters, when Andrew and Toby came back and everything, I could tell that the audience was excited. They were happy to see these characters return, and what works with what works with this film is that each of the characters have their moments. Unlike the Lizard and the Sandman, who do have moments in their film, they don't really do anything. Those two characters don't really do anything in this movie just to be there. And obviously there's a little confusion with the whole fact that Sandman is a villain in this movie and everything, and the whole plot things with him, and how does Electro know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man and everything. It doesn't really work, but in this movie it just kind of works. This movie just pretty much says, hey, sit down, enjoy this movie, because Spider-Man No Way Home is a love letter to Spider-Man fans ever since 2002. Like, this movie is dedicated to the love of Spider-Man. And in this movie, we also get the return of Charlie Cox as Daredevil, which was a pretty cool cameo, but didn't really amount to nothing in a sort of sense. But it does confirm that Charlie Cox as Daredevil does exist within the MCU and was really cool. With Peter and MJ in this movie does work in this movie. Honestly, I'm kind of surprised, but MJ in Zendaya's MJ and Tom Holland's Peter in this movie works. And I think it works better in this film is because of the fact that at this point in time, they were actually dating in this movie, which apparently it's been reported that they're getting married and everything. But Tom Holland and Zendaya in this movie work really great. You could definitely tell the chemistry and the love that they have for each other, and especially within the dialogue, and I think it just works in this movie. And it's the same thing with Andrew and Emma's relationship within the Amazing Spider-Man films. And honestly, I love this relationship more than what we got in Far From Home. And yeah, while it seemed like, oh, it's the summertime and everything, and while Peter ends up getting everything that he practically wanted in the film, it didn't feel earned in a sort of sense. In this film, it actually feels earned in this movie. The relationship that they both have in this movie and everything, it works. And I love the way that they took this kind of story. Now, the backbone of this film is based off one of the worst comic book Spider-Man stories, is One More Day. And that's where Peter Parker literally does the same thing that he does in this movie. He goes to Doctor Strange and everything to have the world forget that he's Spider-Man, but Doctor Strange isn't able to do that, but sends him to literally the devil, the Mephisto of the MC of Marvel and everything. And Mephisto literally makes everybody forget, but Peter requests that he gets one more day with MJ, because in this storyline, in that storyline, MJ dies and everything, and Aunt May. So he requests that everybody forget that he's Peter Parker in order to see MJ for one more day and everything. And it's also based on another comic book where it literally has Doctor Strange making everybody forget, as with freaking Tony Stark and Reed Richards and everything. And it literally does the same thing in this movie. And I'm surprised that they were able to do that story and make it work, because like I said, it is literally the worst storyline for any Spider-Man comic book and everything. And it just works in this movie and everything. So this movie has high stakes and everything. And that's what I like about a Spider-Man movie. It has real high stakes in this movie, because for one, Green Goblin, Doc Ock, Electro, and yes, even the Lizard and Sandman, they have no problem of killing Peter Parker. They are going out to kill Peter Parker in this movie, and Willem Dafoe in his performance as the Green Goblin is the best. I can 100% say that Willem Dafoe is literally the Joker of the MCU, literally, like in the Marvel movies, as Green Goblin. Willem Dafoe is terrifying in this movie as the Green Goblin. He is completely insane and a lunatic, and I love the sympathetic side that we get for Norman Osborn, where he's confused. He doesn't know where he is. There's no Oscorp. He doesn't have his son and everything, and he's confused. He doesn't know where he is, and I love it. And like, the performances in this movie are great. Andrew and Tobey Maguire returning is great, and the ending of the movie was great. At the end of the movie, Peter ends up asking Doctor Strange to erase everybody's memory, and Doctor Strange tells him if he does this, no one will remember him. No one will remember Peter Parker, but they will remember Spider-Man. And Peter tells him to do it. Peter ends up going to MJ and Ned, telling them that everything is going to be okay, and ends up saying that when all of it's over, he'll come back and get them. He'll come back and tell them and make them remember everything that they've gone through. And you could definitely tell within that scene, this is literally a true loss for Peter Parker. And even losing Aunt May in this movie, Peter really suffers and loses in this movie. And it works. It works. This is a Spider-Man movie that everybody comes to love and enjoy. And I love the ending with the final swing of the uncertainty of Peter Parker, and how it is similar to the PS4 Spider-Man, where he lives in a crappy apartment, ends up going back to the cloth suit, and listens to radio scanners from the police and everything, and does the final swing. It's absolutely amazing, and the post-credit scenes are great. The second post-credit scene featured Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness trailer. The first post-credit scene featured Tom Hardy in the MCU and everything, and he was drunk, which was funny. He goes back to the Sony universe, but he ends up leaving a piece of the Venom symbiote, which I bet you within Spider-Man 4, 5, or 6, they're going to do the symbiote story at some point. And so, anyway, my thoughts on this movie: Spider-Man No Way Home is probably within the top 3, 100% guaranteed top 3 Spider-Man movies of all time. This movie does justice to Tom Holland's Spider-Man character, who for the longest time I didn't really care for and everything. I love Tom as Peter and Spider-Man, but there was just something missing, and I think Spider-Man No Way Home has finally brought that to the character. And so with that being said, I give Spider-Man No Way Home literally a 9 out of 10, a 4 out of 5 stars. I 100% recommend that you watch this movie. Spider-Man No Way Home does justice to the MCU Spider-Man, and I believe has fixed the MCU Spider-Man. So with that being said, this is that is my thoughts about Spider-Man No Way Home and my review. And I'll see you all very soon. Peace out.